guys, we're back for part 2 of our Blonde Ambition tour. So, we've only been off air not even 10 minutes because we didn't get to watch the video the whole way through. So you can see the amazing lightening that's happened at the root. But now what I've done is I've broken it down into that traditional 4-section application, because what baby wants for her birthday is she wants to be as blonde as she can. Now, as we all know, or maybe we don't, I shouldn't assume that we all know anything. Let's say we're trying to get lighter. Well, if I just pulled that color through and it was saturated on her hair, of course the top layers where the porosity is higher, of course, would lift and get very blonde, but our ends may not, and we would have uneven coloring. In order to get the most effective lightening out of your work, we would enclose it into the medium of our choice. And my medium of choice will always be the highlight paper. I never was quite comfortable with foil. I know back in the old days, people had a lot of trouble because they didn't have coated aluminum foil yet. And we all learned in high school, of course, that we don't mix chemicals in metal bowls. And if we do, we will have that reaction. Now you see, by putting her in paper, big sections, this is about, you can go a good fat inch. If you do it this way, it might take a couple more minutes and we'll have time on it, but of course to me, the results far outweigh the couple extra minutes it takes to load paper in. But the best thing it does is it keeps the formula moist, which we know color will only lift as long as the color remains moist. And depending on environmental factors, there are parts of it that absolutely can dry out and quit working. And she should also experience no scalp irritation for when we go to put her under the dryer, since it's not laying directly on her skin. Now, I do work with saran wrap also. We could do that, but the mess does not make for a nice presentation. Paper is always, to me, the way to go. When I board certified in 1998, I was one of a handful of people that actually took the test with paper. So, the product is called Highlight Helpers, and you should be able to find it in supply houses wherever you're at. If not, of course, treated foil is fine. Just make sure that it is treated. The evenness of the lightening is what keeps people coming back. Most people are amazed when people tell them they have their hair colored. The condition is just like a kid's hair, shiny, soft.
Oh shit.
You're alright. So we're going out to eat for your birthday, right?
Mhm. El Tío Pepe.
That's right. Really is sad we lost our Mexican restaurant here in
Oh,
Ferguson.
Maria's closed?
She's been closed for months.
I didn't know anything about that.
Her son that cooked
Uh-huh.
was going to take it over, but we haven't heard hiding her hair.
What? They had a McDonald's on that boat. Isn't that boat you used to talk about?
Well, that was another one, at one time it was
Oh, that was
called
a
the
different
Becky.
boat?
Yeah, at one time it was called the Becky Thatcher. The Admiral was about 3 times bigger than that.
They
That
had a
was,
McDonald's on there?
yeah, man, everybody ate McDonald's.
I know, but that's awesome that they had a McDonald's right there. Like, just the way that it's set up. I've never seen anything like that.
But now that you've been hearing about what the meat really is, I mean, I know that you live on your own now and you're on a budget, but don't tell me you're eating that, really.
I only, well, I
Uh-huh.
haven't been at home, and she always cooks chicken for me.
She.
Yeah,
She who?
you know, my friend.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like a restaurant or,
No, she always cooks, and she cooks a lot of chicken and fish.
yeah. Be careful the meat you eat. This has really nothing to do with hair, but
I know, but that scared me.
we always have different conversations. You can talk about anything you want behind the chairs.
I forget what I was asking you about when
People know.
the first time we started the camera. And just, oh yeah, the bird. So you're saying if I get a bigger bird, I have to have like a child, like, or something that it would, like,
Bigger birds can live up to 100 years.
I know they usually outlive their, their
Exactly,
owner. That's what I knew
exactly.
what you were talking about, but
Right, but if you get,
what if I
say,
got like a rescued one?
well, I don't know about that, but
No, you remember that old bird lady?
yeah, I do. But remember, she was kind of nuts, and we haven't talked to her since.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so of course, if you got something like a cockatiel, their lifespan is 30 to 35 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you know the
I mean, I guess it
shitheads
doesn't
are
have to be
cockatiels.
big. I just want something that can, like, hang out with me while I'm at home.
Well, and you remember how beautiful the little bluebird was, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a little too small.
Oh yeah, I don't want to.
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess he's got my big place to fly around. It doesn't really matter.
Well, it does
There's
though.
nothing that can get him.
No,
I
no,
don't
see,
have.
and
I
a
don't
lot
use
of
my ceiling fans.
a lot of birds will fly into plate glass. They think it's outside.
Oh, my windows.
Right. I mean, you could, don't get me wrong. Oh, I do wanna jump back to hair for a minute and come out of birdland. Okay, guys, so something about the papers to know. If you are enclosing hair like this, if you crease the bottoms of the paper, it helps keep it wet and it keeps the moisture or the mixture working. But let's say you were just touching up a head of highlights. They would suggest that you leave that paper open without the crease. And that way, if you would have overlap on pre-lightened hair, of course it would quit working because it dried out. So that is another aspect of how to use the paper. You see, we're in the long hair, so I just flipped that right up, applied my mixture, creased the bottom, and there we go. Just to stay even, I'm working from bottom to top, and then at the end, we'll get the very top, because of course, that is where her widest hair is, that was easiest to lift. When were you almost black? Was that 2 years?
No, that was a year ago.
That was only a year ago. Okay, so
A
We're-
year and a half.
we're talking about a level 3 a year and a half ago. And that's why, of course, this older mid-shaft down still hung on to pigment. That's where, to me, those fashion colors are tough, because sometimes no matter what is thought to lift that off, there's some difficulty. In the old days, they used to mix bleach and peroxide and shampoo and do what was called a soap cap. That's just a little history of hairdressing. Fortunately, things have come a long way since those days. There we go. Okay, bring your head up a little bit. Yeah, we had great music for our audience, but when I closed the door, there was a lot of noise going on downstairs. There's dogs barking and people coming, so. Now, you can find me out there at Suze Pratt on YouTube. And recently, I started a new show called Sophia's, whoa, birds got excited about that, didn't they? Sophia's Emporium. And you can find that show on a network called Conscious Consumers Network. They are free and independent media. A lot of people these days would know the term alternative media, which means not the stuff you would get on regular TV that's all owned and operated by the same conglomerate and person. So much information out there. I'm also on Facebook at Susanna Rudd, and my business page is Hair Emporium by Suze. It's a lot of information. I've been online now 20 months, so it really is a wonderful thing to have so many new friends and associates that all have the same interests. There's a huge group out there now of hair colorists that are advancing and using products like this. So when I was in my salon and with my girls, of course, they always knew about this stuff because, of course, I brought it to them. But to see now how many thousands of people are coming to find out about this is wonderful. There's maybe at the most 3 people in Missouri that use Organic Color Systems or O&M. You may find hairdressers out there that know about and use enzymes. I've done a lot of education on that in the past. But when you put the two together, what a fantastic combination. So, let's talk about how much color we've used on a pull through like this. I guess you guys are probably wanting to know. That was 5 ounces. And I've just run out. So I'm going to close the paper off, grab another box, get her mixed up. That way you'll actually be able to see the mixing application this time. Okay. Here we go. Don't want that. So, there we go. This is a cream color. A whisk is used to mix. When you use a high lift blonde, it's normally double developer to the color. a lot of people, like I said, are so fascinated with higher and higher. This would be the equivalent of a 50 to an 80 volume developer with no damage. Isn't that amazing? Now, when I was in beauty school, and that was back in 1982, there was a supply house that was known for selling a 120 volume developer. And of course, they would cut it down with water to save a few pennies and to make what they needed. This always blew my mind to begin with, because peroxide is known as a heavy chemical. It's basically the waste and runoff from industry, and it's like 18% ammonia gas suspended in a fluid. So it's always funny to tell people that back in the old days, the mark of an excellent hair colorist was one that could mix ammonia and peroxide without creating an explosion. You got to love that. Could you imagine, Lauren, if you were a hairdresser 80 years ago and you had somebody in the chair and all of a sudden, I mean, you actually saw vapor leaving the head.
Oh, that'd be scary.
the hair.
I'd put the hose over them.
Right, and the hair melting in front of your very eyes.
They didn't get sued for that?
Always have. But that really isn't fair, is it? Because if the hairdresser has no clue what they're working with because they were never exactly explained to, and they have a license, from the minute they purchase the product, all of the liability transfers over to the hairdresser. And that's how for years they've been poisoning people, whether it's in any avenue that goes on now. Actually, it's interesting what the FDA had to say about it too, is when faced with these things in the 1970s disclosure with cancer from hair color, the FDA said, well, they did not want to deprive the consumer of their enjoyment of that particular product. So, of course, everybody enjoys it because they believe it to be safe. Okay, guys, look at this. I don't use a bristle brush. It just hit the floor, and of course we know that would be the kiss of death in the salon. Do you see how easy that is to wipe clean? So, I have nothing to slow me down, and I'm back in business.
Mom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my friend dyed her hair red, and then she says she dyed it black, and now it's green, and every time she tries to dye it, it turns green. Can
Yep.
you help her?
Well, guess what? Your mommy is starting a hair color hotline soon. So let's say that this was...
Well, she just wants her hair
next-
done.
Oh, I'm sure. But, you know, someone could call and actually get help. The 831-9074, which has been the Hair Emporium's phone number since 1985, will be converted to a hair color hotline. So, in the meantime, you can type into her that the only thing that she can do is go to Sally Beauty Supply, and they have that stuff, and I'm not sure what it's called, but you know, it's just like the Malibu oh, you know what? Is she like in the area?
Mm-hmm.
She can come here and buy Malibu from me. I've got enough. And she's gonna have to sit under a hot dryer for 45 minutes with it. So, you know, it doesn't damage the hair at all. You've seen me use it for color correction, remember? Right. And if she doesn't have a dryer at home, she'll have to take advantage of this. Here, bring your head up. When we work with the paper, it's really important to have the right angle. Never be afraid to ask your client to adjust their head for you. Cell phones never come first in the mix of hair. I mean, unless you're a gajillionaire, you know, then you get to do whatever you want. Kind of like when I first was in beauty school, Lauren. If, let's say you were a jet setter and you were going on your big holiday adventure, but you really needed your hair color done. And so you said, hey, will you mix me up some hair color so I can take it and look good while I'm gone? Now, back when I was in beauty school, if you participated in that kind of debauchery, it could be anywhere from $1,000 fine to $1,000 and a year in jail. That was the old rules. Now, here's what's interesting. We go back to the early 90s, maybe mid-90s, when the computers were getting hot in the salons. And so we had these very upscale New York, LA based salons that now all of a sudden had been allowed or been able to actually mix color for their jet setting clients, and the client purchased it at the salon. Now, this was a huge difference in what I had been accustomed to, but as we know, they change laws and rules all the time, and one of the saddest things is, of course, in our industry, 75% of the female population colors their hair, yet only half find themselves in a hair salon. And so the way I look at it is being here in the ghetto, they call it, Ferguson, Missouri. Most people are terrified to drive in, but in the meantime, of course, I'm famous for my color. So we're gonna see how that all goes, and I'll look into the legalities of it. And you never know, your mom might be making custom mixed color formulations, and to me the important thing is getting it to the hairdresser and the client. So for example, most hairdressers, of course, as you know, aren't able to choose the line of products they want to use because they work for someone else who tells them what they must use. So let's say that the person hears about my color formulas. I'm legally able to do it, mix it up, ship it, mail it, and then that person can hand it over to their hairdresser, and the hairdresser and the client can negotiate a fair wage for the application. And from there, wow, I mean, they got their hair color, and the hairdresser has this expanded wave where now all of a sudden people know that person for their hair color. I'd still say at this point, 70% of all the hairdressers